From my childhood, there's been things that I haven't shared, even though people do know about some of the stuff. There's definitely stuff I haven't shared. No one's heard about this. Yeah, my wife hasn't heard. My family don't know. So parents, no one. So I finally decided to, share a part of this, so people understand that it's okay and it's a part of growing. So I was approached by Barbara and I thought it was a great opportunity to discuss and lighten the load a little bit and help me move forward and hopefully help others as well.
Welcome to Hello Darling Stories from Under the Blanket. Many of us have untold stories, secrets we kept hidden and didn't tell. The world is shifting, so is our consciousness. Some of us have turned things around and are ready to let it go now. So join us as we uncover stories from under the blanket to encourage others to do the same. Today, our guest from Under the Blanket is Dr. Brett Dellar, founder of the Momentum Revolution. Brett has a passion for inspiring men to unmask their feelings and accept help when they need it. Brett suffered depression for many years until he was able to find a way out. His story proves that it is never too late to ask for help and to make a difference. Hello, darling, welcome to the show.
Hello, darling, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Do I talk to you as a Dr. Brett Dellar or just Brett?
Brett's fine.
Brett is fine.
I was born Brett and I'll die Brett. So.
Well, hopefully long time.
Long time away, yeah.
Brett, darling, may I ask you, what's Momentum Revolution? And can I see a logo for our viewers? Yes, beautiful.
So the Momentum Revolution is about helping men deal with issues around mental health and if they're struggling in some aspects of their life.
And why do you think we have to do so much work to encourage men to do it?
Because men like to hide away their feelings. They like to pretend everything's okay. They don't like to share if they're struggling. They don't like to open up or even admit to themselves that they're struggling at times.
Men that come to your workshops, I assume, so can you tell us in a few words what the workshops Momentum Revolution look like?
So the workshops run for 2.5 days and they're designed specifically for men to allow men to deal with any issues that may be arising. And those workshops are live-in, all-inclusive, and we have a lot of processes in place. Some are talking, some are looking at writing things down, getting things out in the open that way, and there's other ones where it's a bit more practical involvement with each of the men.
After a man has experienced the 3-day or 5-day workshop and learned, or as I say, discovered what he discovered, yeah. What are the follow-up tools? How do they get taken care of themselves, or what do you offer them to come back?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of the men who have done the workshop actually come back and help later on, and they learn a lot more about themselves on the follow-up ones when they're actually as a support team. But we provide them a whole bunch of tools so they can use them on a daily basis. I always tell the men that you can't stay fit by going to the gym once and eating healthy once. You have to do it consistently, and so we provide them different tools along the way so they can use every day, and we also have obviously other support systems in place as well.
What age of men are coming to you?
From their 20s to their 60s, all the way through. From every background, age, whether it's from their religious beliefs or their where they work, so diversified. It's not funny. There's no category of any man. It's all diversified all the way through.
Remember your first workshop you did to find help for yourself? How was it?
Terrifying. I had to face the fears of my past. I had to face the fears of what people might say, think or do when they found out what had happened. I was in an environment where I didn't know anyone at all, hardly, and it was scary, and it was scary for a lot of the men who were there, everyone. because you're dealing with something. You went into the unknown, which is one of the things about the workshops was great because you had no expectations, but it was like I said, life-changing for me. So it was terrifying, but also one of the most rewarding things, if not the most rewarding thing I've ever done for myself in my entire life.
We are today showcasing stories from under the blanket, which is obviously a metaphorical term,
Yes.
but partly very true. We hide stories, we keep them under the blanket. When we go to sleep, everything becomes darker. The problems are much more intense than during daylight sometimes. Do you experience this with people that are attending your workshops?
Absolutely. A lot of the men there who attend, they've been hiding things and pretending everything is okay for many, many years. And so this is the opportunity for them actually to let it go. And for many years they've been pretending that their life is okay to the outside world. To everyone else, from the outside looking in, appears that their life is fine, but internally they're actually struggling. And that then manifests itself in other ways. And that manifestation is they get angry or depressed or anxious, or they have a drinking issue or a gambling issue, or they numb that pain that they're feeling in a different way.
Must be very difficult for the partners, females, mothers, wives, girlfriends.
Absolutely. And the great thing about having an amazing partner or wife is you get great support, but it also wears them down as well over a long period of time. And so when the men leave the workshop, we've actually structured up something for the women as well. So they get a little bit of support through what we call Womentum, which is the women side of things, where we actually let them know that how there can be some changes in place regarding the men, but also how they can build and grow their relationship again.
Okay. Brett, now back to you.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your background, your childhood, growing up.
I grew up in a very loving, supportive family. I was very, very blessed. Dad worked for the railways and in the government for a long time. Mum was a stay-at-home mum. A couple of sisters who were younger than me, and we spent a lot of time in the country with family on the farms, etc. So I had a very, very blessed childhood. Was okay at school, but was more interested in sports more than anything.
So you have a happy childhood memories.
Very much so, yes.
And then something happened.
Yes, when I was 6 years old, Dad had got transferred to a small country town, and a neighbour down the road, he took the opportunity and sexually abused me on several occasions. This is the thing that I kept hidden from everyone for many, many years, and my parents found out. The first person I ever told I was about 22, so it was secret till I was about 22, and my parents found out when I was about 28, and my wife knew about it when we first started dating, and because I was struggling at the time with depression, and then I didn't really reveal it to the world until about three years ago, when I had the strength and the courage to actually step forward.
So how many years, if you would give the bold figure, I kept my secret under the blanket?
Pretty much 44 years.
44
years.
Brett, is there any story that you never told anybody, untold story, the secret from under the blanket?
Oh, yeah, obviously the big one was obviously about the child abuse, but there was one incident that I still haven't even, I'll have to speak to them after I leave here, with my mum and dad. They don't, no one knows this, and part of the thing that you feel when you've had the child abuse is you have shame, guilt, blame, fear, all that sort of stuff. And I remember one particular incident where we had an outhouse where we were living, and the perpetrator took me in there. And when we came out, my mother saw us, and she said, "What are you doing in there?" And I protected and defended him by saying he was helping me. And so for me, I lived with that, as you can see, it's still quite raw. Lived with that for many years because I felt guilty because I should have been able to do something at the time. And when you're older, when you're 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, and you look back at that, your mind thinks you have instead of having a 6-year-old brain, you have a 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old brain. And so it plays tricks on you. And so I look at, and logically I know that's not true, but emotionally that's how I felt. And so for me it was one of those times where that was the big one, I think, that really, and as you can still see, it still has an emotional impact on me because I hadn't shared that with anyone but you have to let that go and be open and honest and empower others to let them know it's okay to share this stuff and it's okay to deal with it.
Thank you. So now you're free.
Now I'm free.
Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you, Barbara. How
did it affect your life on ongoing? Have it hidden?
When it comes to my childhood, up until I was about late teens, early 20s, 1920, I felt pretty normal, but I always knew that it was there and what had happened. And the brain was very smart. It actually tucked it away until I was mature enough to deal with it. And then when I turned about 20, all of those feelings and emotions and issues started to bubble up. And of course, as a bloke, the first thing I did was push it all down and pretend everything was okay. And I continued to do that for many, many years. And I tried to deal with it in my own way. And it just caused my depression to get worse and worse. And so I suffered from depression from the age of 20 till I was about 50.
So what did you do to be able to function altogether? You went through relationships, you had multiple professions.
Yes.
May I touch on it a little bit?
Yes.
What were your coping tools to just float?
I used, especially in my late teens, early 20s, I definitely used alcohol to get through a bit of it. And even though I wasn't an alcoholic, I definitely used it to numb that pain. But sport was my big thing. I used sport to cope because I could control that environment. I couldn't control what else was going on around me. So within a reason, running, football, cricket, all those things helped me cope, and being amongst a bunch of other blokes as well. That act, belong, commit sort of thing, that made a big difference to my life at that period of time.
Going back to the little Brett, do you think today, with what you know, if you would look at the little Brett today, what would you tell him?
It's all right. It's okay. It's all right to speak up and to ask for help. Yeah, definitely.
You say you didn't like yourself, you didn't like living in your own skin. You felt until a certain age as a child living in adult's body.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like a fake, a fraud, a failure until I was really 50, I suppose. But I got married at the age of 40, so I was a bit of a late bloomer in that area. But I remember thinking 2 years into my marriage, I still felt like a child in a man's body, and I thought someone was going to find out. I thought someone was going to see me, and I'd been a police officer, I worked in finance, I was a chiropractor, and I still felt like a child because of the whole emotional attachment to what happened to me when I was a child.
So for those that are watching us today, before some of them will be able to hopefully experience your workshops, what's your biggest word of advice and encouragement?
When you live with or struggle with something, it's the fear that controls you. You have to stay in your comfort zone and pretend everything's okay. We've been conditioned almost that men shouldn't cry and men shouldn't ask for help, and we should be tough and hard and resilient, and that's all BS. I mean, we're emotional beings, and it's if you are in that struggle, what I call the struggle bubble, then step out of it and ask for help. And it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to do something about it. It's okay to actually make a difference and live the life you want to live, and get rid of that fear and that pain that's holding you back. Because once you're free of it, oh my God, it's just, life is. If you told me 3 years ago I'd be sitting here chatting with you about depression and my child abuse, I would have laughed at you. But that's how quickly it can change around. It's that quick.
Thank you. And yet you had so many attempts of finding help, yes?
Yes.
Can you run me quickly through until the real one came? Because I think for viewers that watch us now, maybe they tried, it didn't work. Maybe they're afraid to try. Just give me a few examples what you tried until it worked.
I spoke to counsellors and psychologists when I was in the police force, and then after I left the police force, and that helped me to a point. And then I came clean with all my very close mates at the time, and that helped to a point as well. But I always went back to an old cycle. It never really quite cleared it. And then I went through a very, very bad 4 or 5 months, I should say, when I was 49, 50, just as I transitioned through that period. And one of my colleagues, friends, sort of said, mate, stop mucking around, deal with your stuff and move on. And so he convinced me to go to a workshop, which I did. I travelled over to Queensland for it, and I spent a few days over there at this workshop, and it allowed me to deal with it in a very different way. And it was life-changing for me, transformational.
So your wife, how long have you been married now?
13 years almost.
So your wife lived part of her life with a depressed man.
Yes.
And now she has the other man.
Different man altogether. So she was basically my carer for the first 10 years of our marriage. And everyone else got the best of me, because you put on this man mask, and show the world that you're okay. You come home and I'd be shattered, and didn't have anything left for her. So she was my carer really for 10 years. And when I came back, and over the next 18 months or so, I changed as a person. I was still the core me, but I had to learn who I was again. I had to learn what I loved and what I wanted to do. And I still love my chiropractic work. I love helping people, but doing the momentum work with the men, that's my passion and what I want to do. And we've had to redefine our relationship on several occasions and have open conversations about how to act and respond, because I was a different person, and now she's just my best friend like she always was, but she doesn't have to be my carer anymore, which is beautiful.
Beautiful. So she provides the second Brett.
Yes, yes.
Brett, you're also helping creating awareness. You are speaker at the annual Men in Black Ball.
Yes.
In support of men's mental health, and working with mates in construction this
Yes.
year. How wonderful. Where do you see Brett going in next years? What can we expect from Momentum and Brett?
Great question. Look, for me, I'm so excited about getting involved with the Men in Black Ball and helping the mates in construction. But for me, I want to just go worldwide. I want to make sure that every man has the opportunity to see that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to deal with your stuff if you need to, your pain, your trauma. It's not weak to ask for help. It's not weak to think that you're by yourself, you're alone, because you're not. There's millions of men out there who are struggling. We just pretend that we're not. And once we get through that barrier, then I just want to let as many men in the world know that they can change their life. They just have to take that first step.
I would imagine that to get new people coming now to be helped by you, one of the most important factors you need is to gain their confidence. How do you do it? For me, I share my story, and the other men within the workshop who assist, they share their stories as well, because that way they get to know that they're not alone, and that we're dealing with it through our own life experience. We know what's worked for us, and we're trying to help you with what's worked for us, basically. So we just try and let them know and make them feel comfortable that, what's happened to us has worked, and we're hoping to make a big difference in your life by doing the same. Now, being a parent, every parent who listens to us today will think, what do I do? How do I do it with my child? What do you think can be done to increase the factor of prevention, that we don't end up with millions of men being suicidal, depressed?
I think it's really important to build resilience in our children, especially today. I feel like a lot of the children are lacking resilience, but also allowing them to know that it's all right to ask for help. It's all right to struggle. It's all right to have bad days. It's all right to be sad. It's all right to be angry. But then it's allowing them to process that as well and understand where it comes from and why it's there. And if we as children learn to mask our pain and pretend everything's okay, and because we learn from our parents, And I'm not saying that that's what my parents did, but that's what society taught me, okay? Because my dad is a very open and forward-thinking man, but when it comes to society and you get into your primary school, high school years, all of a sudden it's like, don't be a sook, don't cry, toughen up, you know, go to Bunnings and get a bag of cement and, you know, harden the hell up, and that sort of stuff. And so the society's expectations can have a big impact on how you act and behave. So it's really important to break that down right from the base level through the parents, and then obviously through the community as well if we can.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you so much for your work, for your contribution to the society. I wish Momentum the biggest momentum worldwide. And now at the very end, I'm going to give you a magic wand. Magic wand with 2 wishes, one for the world,
yes,
and one for yourself.
Yes.
What would it be?
Okay, the first one for the world is to have every man understand that he can deal with his stuff, that he can take a step forward. And if we can have a world of men who are not struggling emotionally, who are strong and independent and authentic and have that passion for life, then that'll change their families, their communities, nations, and I believe it'll change the world and how things would be viewed and done. The second one for me, I don't really have a wish per se but I feel very blessed, and I love what I'm doing now. And for me to do a whole bunch more work around the Momentum Revolution and helping men and making the biggest impact I can in this world, if I could do that, that's my wish.
Thank you, Brett. Thanks for being my guest.
Thank you very much, Barbara, for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.